Hi guys, I'm just going to go through this practice in case you want to double check your work. Remember that you could always on your calculator, I usually put x as 10, store a value for x, and then you can type it in exactly the way it is and just double check that the question is the same as the answer. All right. So the only thing to be careful of is if it's subtraction, you do have to, sorry, if it's subtraction, ah, you do have to distribute the negative. Other than that, it's really pretty simple. Okay, so here's a negative sign, so I'm going to distribute it. When you distribute a negative sign, that means that you change the sign of everything being subtracted to the opposite of what it is. So I'm just going to copy the top, which is 4x squared plus 2x subtraction 3. And then I'm going to change the signs of everything that's on the bottom. So positive becomes negative, positive becomes, whoops, that's a 6, negative, and negative becomes positive. And then you just add down the columns like you would three-digit addition or subtraction in the earlier grades. So 4 minus 2 is 2. Never ever change an exponent when you add or subtract. 2 minus 6 is negative 4. Never ever change an exponent when you add or subtract. And negative 3 plus 4, or 4 minus 3 is 1. Okay, so the only thing you really have to be careful of is distributing the negative sign. When it's addition, you're just really combining like terms or adding like terms. So you have the 2x squared and the 2x squared, 2 plus 2 is 4. You have the 9x and the x, which is the same as 1x, which becomes 10. And then you have the negative 3 and the negative 4, which becomes negative 7. Okay, so adding is really just combining like terms. Okay, so I have to distribute the negative, and I'm just going to write it underneath the other one to save some time. So I have negative x squared, positive becomes negative. I have positive 6x, negative becomes positive, and I have negative 2, positive becomes negative. So x squared minus x squared becomes 0 because those are opposites or additive inverses. 6 minus 2 is 4, and 9 minus 2 is 7. One of the things that I do is if I have two numbers with opposite signs, I just say it in the order of positive minus negative. It just helps my brain register it a little bit better. Okay, so here, even though there is a plus sign, you could just combine the like terms, but you have to use the distributive property first. So the 2 has to get distributed. So that gives me 2x squared plus 16x plus 10. And then the 3 has to be distributed, which gives me 3x squared plus 18x minus 12. So combining like terms, I get 5x squared plus 34x minus 2. And again, you can check all of these on your calculator. Another way to check them on the calculator, which is really cool, is you type the question into y sub 1, and you type the answer into y sub 2, and you just compare the graphs or the tables. If they are equivalent, that means that you have the right answer, because equal things will give you equal tables, give you equal graphs. So that's another cool way of checking it. Question goes in y sub 1, answer goes in y sub 2. All right, so again, distributive property. So that gives me negative, I'm going to write it over here, negative 15x squared plus 10x plus 15. That does say 15. So it's 5 times 3, 5 times 2, 5 times 3 again. And now distributive property. So negative 4x squared minus 4x and then plus 16, because a negative times a negative is a positive. So that gives me negative 19x squared. Never ever change an exponent when you're adding or subtracting. Plus 10x, and then plus 31. Okay. Distributive property. So we have 15x squared minus 20x plus 15. Distributive property. Negative x squared minus 4x plus 4. Negative times negative is a positive. 15 minus 8 is 7. Never ever change an exponent when you're adding or subtracting. Negative 24x and plus 19. So we're using the distributive property and we're using combining like terms, both things that you should be comfortable with. Okay. Not sure where there's a black dot, but whatever. All right, so these come directly from prior Regents exams. So this is what the questions would look like. All right, so here we go. That black dot is making me crazy. I wonder if you guys see the black dot or if it's just me. Okay. All right, here we go. Which trinomial is written in standard form? So first I'm going to check for standard form. So that knocks out choice 2 because it has to go from highest power to lowest power. Okay. The next thing, it has a constant term of 5. So that's a 10, that's a 1, and this is a 5. Which polynomial has degree 3? So degree 3 would mean that the highest power is 3. So that knocks out choice 1, and that knocks out choice 3. And it has a leading coefficient of 2. So that means that the monomial that's first, or the first term, has to have a 2, and it also has to have a cube, x to the third. It could be y to the third, but usually we do a lot of x's, so choice 4. And this is really just vocabulary. Constant term is a number all by itself. Standard form is descending order of exponents. And degree of the polynomial is the degree of the highest term. Okay, what is the constant term of the polynomial? So it's a good idea to put it in standard form first, but you can probably get the answer without standard form. Because remember, the constant is the number all by itself. The constant is the number all by itself. Okay, a student creates a 4th degree trinomial. So choice 3 is out because that's a 2nd degree, and choice 4 is out because that's a 3rd degree. The degree of the trinomial is the degree of the highest monomial shown, and it's usually first if it's in standard form. So it has a leading coefficient of 2, which means the first term, once in standard form, has a coefficient of 2. Both of those apply. And a constant value of 5, which means that the number all by itself is a 5. The constant is the number all by itself. Okay, and that's vocabulary. You can't really check vocabulary on a calculator. However, for the next 1, 2, 3 questions, those can totally be done on the calculator just using the word equivalence. So you put the question in y sub 1, you put the answer in y sub 2, and you just make sure that they're equal. Of course, it's better to know how to do it, but that's always a fallback when you have multiple choices, that you can do a lot of stuff on the calculator. I'm going to leave a gap between the x squared and the constant so that I can put the x there. You're going to distribute the negative sign. So that's going to become a negative 7x squared. That's going to become a positive 5x, and that's going to become a negative 4. So that's going to give me negative 10x squared, which they all have. But that's going to give me a plus 5x, which eliminates choices 3 and 4. And then 9 minus 4 is 5. Again, you can check that on your calculator. I really, I'm kind of bewildered by the fact that some of you are willing to just lose points because you're too busy to push buttons on a calculator. It's just kind of silly. If it can be checked on the calculator, you kind of owe it to yourself to do the best you can. All right. So you got 5x squared minus 2x plus 4. And you're distributing the negative, so that becomes negative 3x squared minus 3x plus 1. Okay, so that's going to give me 2x squared. So those are both out because you never ever change an exponent when you're adding or subtracting. And then that gives me negative 5x right there. And again, you can check it on your calculator. All right, so you got 3x squared because you're distributing the 3. You got minus 6x because you're distributing the 3. And you got plus 9 because you're distributing the 3. Then you're going to distribute the negative sign. That gives you negative 4x squared. That gives you negative 3x. And I already see my answer right here, but I'm going to keep going, and that gives you a plus 1. Okay, please use your calculator. It is a guarantee getting it right. Seems kind of silly to me. All right, have a great day. Hope everyone's feeling well.